Hello, Internet! It is I, Hewlett, David Hewlett, here in my non-studio. You will hear everything happening on the Toronto streets right now because that's just the way it is. There's no way to soundproof this, and I'm sorry. This was not the plan, but this is where I'm at, and I'm going studioless. I'm going to just record what I get. It's being exciting. There'll be like sirens going and stuff in the background. But this is your audio awesome for the week. I am attempting to take my email of awesomeness and to put it into an audio version because who's got time to read? I don't. I'm too busy writing emails of awesomeness. So here you go. Let me start with this planetary ocean of awesomeness we have for you in this week's email of awesomeness. I start, of course, the email by promising to get you this audio version, and that's what I'm doing now. Alien life signs, you say? Well, latest data from JWST. This is the James Webb Space Telescope, which I would lovingly refer to as the Just Wonderful Space Telescope, because there was some drama as to whether we should really be naming it after old white guys. So I just like Just Wonderful Space Telescope anyways. So they may have found signs of aliens. All those aliens we've been looking for? Yeah, they may have found them, but just not in the way that I had in mind. So apparently alien life hunters. I think that's probably their technical term too. Alien life hunter. What do you do for a living? I'm an alien life hunter. They fall mainly into like two camps. There are those who bank on finding life on rocky worlds, like our own. And then there are those that think these Hycean or ocean worlds are the way to go. And the advantage that they're finding with these Hycean worlds is that they are larger. They're easier to analyze. And plus, water. It's been pretty good for our planet. So it seems like a good bet for life on other planets. But just because a planet has these, big swishy oceans and carbon-rich atmospheres and the like, it doesn't mean that they necessarily have life on them, right? So you have to, all of these things have to come together, including where it is in their little solar system. Like it's got to be close enough to the sun, to be warm, but not so close that it's on fire. This Goldilocks zone, as they call it. And one of the advantages of these Hycean ocean worlds is that they have a larger range for that Goldilocks zone, right? So I'm not sure exactly why, but apparently that just makes it more likely to find them and to be able to analyze them. So they're easy to find and to look at. So let's do some looking. So that's what they did. So alien hunting space punks. They booked time on the Just Wonderful Space Telescope, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to spy on this particular ocean planet. Well, what they thought was an ocean planet, as it moved in front of its local sun to it. I mean, this is happening like, what is it, like 120 light years away. So there's nothing local about it for us. But for this little planet, this little ocean planet, its moment in the spotlight, it will move in front of the sun, and from that, the Just Wonderful Space Telescope will be able to fire up its instruments and get us some data. So they booked their time specifically to do this. Again, apologies for all the noises. I'm not soundproofed. I'm just, I have to keep the doors open. Otherwise, I'm literally boiling like a little lobster. So how does it do this? You've probably heard of spectrographs before. I like to brush up on them every so often because it's one of those things that if you don't use it all the time, you sort of I lose the thread on it. I lose the thread on a lot of things, but this one in particular. So JWST, they have a near infrared spectrograph, which collects, of course, you guessed it, near infrared data, and it can grab the light from galaxies and from stars and nebulas and all the rest of it, and it could examine up to 200 of these objects at the same freaking time. So it's doing a lot of work here. And it does this by using 250,000 of these tiny little hair-sized shutters and a thing called a grism, which I just love. There's something about a grism that just has a wonderful, it should be like a Muppet or something, but a grism is actually a grid and a prism all mashed up together. And it allows the Just Wonderful telescope to use the same sensor. Light comes through, you get a lovely image on the sensor. It also has this little grism on it, which splits the light up into all of its little spectra. And the advantage of that, of course, is you don't have to move things around in order to do those experiments to get that data. It's all in the same sort of package, so to speak. So it's a lot easier and more efficient for them to do it that way. It's very cool. It's a really neat idea. So they do this slitless spectrograph, as they call it. The planet moves in front of the sun, its sun, and they start analyzing the colors that they see around it, and so this is where the alien hunters dig into the data and start looking for clues about what the atmosphere might consist of. So what did they find out? Well, they found out that looking at this planet, which is called K2-18b, a name doesn't it just make you want to name things? I know we need a good naming classification system, but oh my God, come on! Like, give it a funky name of some sort. Coffee time. In my delicious Tech Bandits cup, I feel smarter already. Not at getting it on camera by the looks of it, but anyways. So what have they found? They have found carbon-bearing molecules, including methane and carbon dioxide. Good signs. Along with a shortage of ammonia, which I wasn't entirely sure of, which I think the idea behind that is that by not seeing ammonia, it means like, aha, where's all that nitrogen? So that nitrogen might be in living things. I may be wrong on that, but that's sort of what I tried to kludge together in my feeble brain about this stuff. But please correct me if I've totally screwed this up, and I'm sure I have. So shortage of ammonia and this molecule called dimethyl sulfide, DMS. Now DMS is exciting because the only thing we know that creates that here on Earth are like sea critters. Are like these phytoplankton and bacteria and stuff, seafaring animals that create that very oceany smell, or the smell of fermented lagers and stuff. That's the bacteria does that. So it's a smell you would know when if you boil cabbage, you get that smell. It's not the most pleasant smell, but it's also a really important part of cloud formations on planets, and also they think could be a big part of helping with global warming. Or helping in the fight against global warming, but of course, on our planet, it's actually in decline now because, of course, we're screwing this place up. So, but still fascinating. All very, very good signs. I've included a video here about phytoplankton because I'm just kind of fascinated by this whole It's basically these little single-celled animals and such that are basically creating most of the oxygen and livable atmosphere that we're living in. So there's a fun little video there that you should have a look at. So all this data seems to support the hypothesis there is a water ocean beneath K2-18b. I still got to get a better name for it. I'll come up with one eventually. I shouldn't name anything, but yeah. But as science killjoys point out, because of course scientists have to be, right about everything by, not actually being right. I get it. I'm allowed to make blanket statements. They're not. So these killjoys, anyways, are saying that that just because there's DMS in the spectrogram, it doesn't mean there is necessarily ocean life. It's a much more positive chance of it happening than other places, but it's a process. But our understanding of this process of creating this stuff, along with all of our chemistry for that matter on our planet, is based on our planet, right? And Venus. I guess Venus is the other place we've been looking at a lot of this stuff. So it's Earth and Venus centric. So, there's a bias there. So, it's possible that these are both very different. These are very different planets than K12-18b's hydrogen dominated atmosphere. But still, good things. There could be some interesting news coming up about whether in fact they think this is actually phytoplankton like life happening on an ocean there. The truth is in there, not out there. It's in there because one of the things they pointed out in this article, which I just thought was kind of cute, was like, how weird is it that we've always had this image of like aliens, how we're going to discover aliens, like they're going to land on our front lawn, or we're going to see UFO sightings, or there's going to be, some kind of alien transmission, and we're going to go, oh my God, there's life out there. The reality is more like it's going to be some data nerd at a computer running complex organic chemistry simulations. Like that's where they're going to get the, oh my God, there's life on other planets. It's going to be some nerd in the basement. So speaking of aliens, there's nothing more alien on this planet, I think. Well, there's many more alien things on the planet, but one of the most alien things on this planet is these freaking octopuses. I love octopuses. I had this wonderful experience of finding and swimming with this octopus in Australia, and I've included in the email a little video of that, which was just extraordinary. Like it was like kind of one of those like weirdly life-changing events where I just could be there. I could have been there forever watching this ridiculously cool, ridiculously alien-like being as it interacted with myself and the seafloor and the various animals and stuff around it. It just is amazing. Anyways, so I threw that video up there because octopus are getting rights. That's right. They're going to be put. They're talking now about who is it that's doing this? This is the U.S. National Institute of Health. It has proposed guidelines in the U.S. that in order to use them in experiments now, you're gonna have to be approved by an ethics board. So they're gonna have the same rights not as humans, but as mice and monkeys, which I was a little disappointed about because I was like, well, I don't really think mice or monkeys have a lot of rights, do they? Because given the amount of experiments that happen on them, I'm so torn on animal experimentation because I feel like, I guess if we have to do it, but wouldn't it be nice to force people to come up with other ways of doing it just as well without torturing animals? I just think that would be just a kind of a nicer way of doing it, especially when it comes to, poor little monkeys and mice and things. I mean, maybe I'm just a suck, and I understand that there's a need right now. There's certainly a need to, it saves lives, but I just wonder at the cost of those things. And I don't want to get too snowflakey, hippie woke on this stuff, but I at the same time, it feels kind of wrong somehow. Anyways, certainly having swum with my ridiculously handsome friend in Australia, this octopus thing, we haven't eaten octopus since. None of the Hewletts and the Lomans are off octopus because of this thing. So anyway, interesting potential rights for these cephalopods, and they're saying it's because they're capable of learning, which is kind of obvious. Even just looking at my little video, you get a sense that this thing is working stuff out. They're capable of advanced learning. They're capable of cognitive abilities, and they probably perceive pain. So, we're experimenting on them. It's going to hurt. And there was an interesting side here, which is actually not in the email, but that we don't know if anesthetics work on. Like, we know what anesthetics work on. We can put them to sleep, but we don't know if we don't know if we kill the pain. So they might not be able to move, but they could still be feeling pain, which just sounds like a nightmare. So they're saying, like, we got to look into this more. We got to be a little more careful about what we're doing with this. So I'm all for that. I think it's kind of neat. And it's funny this should come up because at the same time that they're worrying about the rights being equal to mice and monkeys, there's some serious monkey business over at Neuralink where there's some allegations that they have not been looking after their animals properly, that there have been an inordinate amount of animal deaths related to this Neuralink technology that they're doing. And so let me tell you a little bit about Neuralink, which I'm actually quite fascinated in. And I'm it's kind of sad that once again, there's this it's got all musky around it. There's all sorts of drama around it because I think this is really neat stuff that they're working on. I've spoken about Neuralink before. So this is a company that's trying to decode brain signals with implanted chips. So instead of just the things that sit in your head that I've played with, they're actually cutting a chunk out of your skull and popping a chip in you. And the idea behind that is that they want people to be able to use, digital prosthetics, computerized prosthetics like arms and legs and interacting with computers and such, in a way that is comparable or even better than just, so-called, us Abes, us able-bodied folks. So kind of a fun project. I think that a fun and noble sounding project, but there's a little concern about that maybe they're rushing a little bit to make it all fancy and sort of sellable, and may have cost some monkeys some pain and suffering in the process. But and the other thing about this is that people in the brain-computer interface world point out this is not the first time this has been done. Like, yes, he's a very good salesman. This stuff has been done before. It's been done way back. I think it goes back as far as like the 1990s. But one of the big splashes was in 2005 when the MIT Technology Review did a story about this kid who'd intervened in a fight and got stabbed in the neck or something and was like paralyzed. And then he was in this program where they embedded one of these, not a Neuralink, but a brain-computer interface, and he was able to have some rudimentary movement on the computer because of it. Again, of course, everyone's imagination goes, "Oh my God, this is great! It's 1990. It's 2005. By 2007, we'll all have chips in our brains." Well, that didn't happen. There's two different approaches to ECGs to this technology. One of them is ECGs. So these are these little electrodes that will pick up brain activity, the electrical activity in the brain, and you would decode that and try to figure out what that's trying to do, and that's what this Neuralink is going to do. And there's this other thing called, which I thought was neat, given that we were just talking about these alien hunters for on other planets. There's this thing called functional near infrared spectroscopy. Speak much? FNIRS, which shines near infrared light through the skull to measure blood flow. And in doing so, they hope to translate the blood flow, the signals to the blood flow, and again, be able to figure out what the patient is intending or thinking or and that kind of stuff. So those are the two sort of the main approaches that they've taken to that. And then, of course, I had to have Midjourney create a little Tech Bandits version of that, which is just the most adorable little thing. God, it's good. When it's good, it's good, that thing. So what's taking so long? Why don't I have a chip in my brain activated? Why isn't this chip in my brain working all this streaming stuff? Well, the biggest stumbling block that they have with this stuff, apparently, is that everyone's brain signals are different. We're all unique, you know. We've all got our own way of doing things, and apparently in our brains, that's exactly the same thing. We've got, you know, the signals are hard to decode because it's you know, everyone does things differently. It's freaking hard to figure that stuff out. AI, of course, is helping with that because it can look for patterns in a way that in much more efficiently than we can. That's so obviously those two technologies are being tied together in a big way because of that. But the reality is, you know, figuring out what our brains are doing electrically is freaking difficult. That's why it's taking so long. There's also the problem that you know, when you've got invasive sensors, you're jabbing crap into your brain, and you know, they can break, they can migrate, as they call them. I love that, migrate. Basically, they move where you don't want them. You suddenly got some sensor jabbing you in the wrong part of the brain. That's gotta work. And then of course there's scarring. Scarring forms when you put these, scarring can form when you put these electrodes in. That will reduce their ability to pick up the signals, and then they have to be replaced. And so there's a whole other, you go right back and start all over again. And then, of course, the biggest issue, of course, is infection. You do not want an infection in your brain. That's like a bad place for an infection. So these are the things, you know, these are the things that they're battling, you know, and that's, you know, these are some of the problems that have come up, which of course Musk has promptly denied as unlikely. In fact, he says that that all of the monkeys that they've used were near death anyways, that they were basically going to die. So they used them in these things, and they died because of basically natural causes. There's a big stink about it because this animal rights groups have sort of taken him to task and have approached the SEC, like the Securities Exchange Commission, saying, hey, you know, this guy is making promises on his Twitter platform about this stuff. And he was just found guilty of that in 2018, 2019 with his Tesla stuff. He can't be talking about this stock and what this company's doing without it going through proper channels. He can't make up stuff about the fact that no monkeys were hurt in the creation of this, which is not what he's saying. But he's saying that basically they were going to die anyways, which has been a number of sources have said that's just probably not true. These monkeys were doing fine until we started putting chips in their head. Anyways, they have got very far with this stuff. I shared a video a little while back. I'll share it again here. It's extraordinary, of a monkey with this implant playing Pong, and then they decouple the controller for the Pong. So the monkey is still doing the motions, but it's not connected to the controller. It's connected to his brain. And this unit is able to pick up what's happening in his brain and convert that into the movement of the Pong, and he's playing the game. I mean, it's spooky cool, like really, really cool. So as I say, there's a bunch of investigations going on. Wired.com had a great and gory story about what happened to all the monkeys. Like, they literally go through all of them. So I got a link in the email about that. You know, and as I say, I mean, part of the case that they had against Elon Musk back in 2018 was about Tesla and him saying things about Tesla that he shouldn't have been online, and he's doing the same thing with Neuralink, and they're worried about that. The quote was, I think, apparently Neuralink's monkeys were close to death already, was what Musk had said, but that and the quote back from a former Neuralink employee was, "That's ridiculous, if not a straight fabrication." Everyone's so polite. Anyway, so needless to say, I was a little surprised when I go onto their website and find that Neuralink, they've gone and got themselves approved for human testing. So despite all this stuff going on, they are now all clear for putting these things in humans, which, great. I mean, I guess the FDA's done the homework and feel that it's ready for that. And so they've started this plan. I just thought I'd walk you through what that involves, because it's kind of cool. It's called Prime, because of course it's got to have a cool name. It'll probably be called Prime X before long. It's the first in-human study that's been available for this kind of thing, and it's designed to evaluate the safety and initial effectiveness of the various different systems that they're doing for this implant. And there's the three main ones are this N1 implant, and I have a little image of that here. That's the actual chip that sits in the brain. It is a computer chip about the size of a Tech Bandits coin. Marketing. It's all marketing, you see. And that records and transmits brain activity through 64 threads. So 64 of these tiny little, like, do they say it's about human hair? Yeah, it's a little thinner than a human hair. There's 64 of these little wires, but they allow for 1,024 different electrodes. So that's 1,024 little points of contact on the brain that it can pick stuff up with. Which is just, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? But more than that, in order to put those things in your brain without as quickly, as efficiently, so we can avoid all those problems of things like them migrating to the wrong place or the scarring or obviously the infection, they built this freaking robot to do the surgery for them. This is the R1 robot. It's a surgical robot that actually implants these devices in the skull. So it removes the skull, finds the right spot, puts in the chip, and then gently eases those little sensors into place. It's amazing. And then of course the last part is this N1 user app. Yes, there's an app for that, and that's basically the interface for the patient to control external devices and stuff. So that's what they're trialing. And what do you get for being a part of this trial? Wow, you get compensated with study-related costs, such as travel expenses to and from the study site. Now, I'm just going to throw this out here, but so you're asking people with disabilities to come in and volunteer for the wonderful privilege of having, motor, ability given back to you and stuff. Should they not compensate people who are involved in this more than just like buying them lunch and their ticket to their subway ticket? It just feels a bit like, I don't know. It just feels a bit like there's Lance and I have talked about this before, where it's like sort of like, oh, well, we're helping people with disabilities, so you should work for us for free so that we can help people do things for disabilities, even though it's maybe helping our bottom line or the goodwill or the value of our company, that kind of stuff. So it just, I don't know, it just seems a bit weird now. I'm always a little worried about engineers developing stuff for people with disabilities without people with disabilities. You know what I mean? Because you kind of want to talk to the people who are going to be using it. Not just talk to the engineers who are capable of building fantastic solutions for these things that may or may not work for people who actually have the disabilities. So, anyways, the study is open to. It's going to be a 6-year study, so you're basically locking in for 6 years. It's open to patients that have limited function in all 4 limbs due to spinal cord injury or ALS. So I don't think Lance is. Lance could probably talk him into anything, but. I think it might be. I got to talk to Lance about it, see what he thinks about it. But I don't know. What do you think? Would you be up for an upgrade? I'm not sure. I'm there yet. I don't just play a coward on television, And finally, so I literally forgot this part last week. This is my long-legged dino-chicken that I was kind of fascinated with, which of course led down a whole other rabbit hole, which I'm going to share with you this week because I forgot to. I got so excited about all the drone racing and stuff, and I found some more cool drone racing stuff, by the way. Next week I want to talk about there's some Roomba racing and stuff that just sounds pretty neat. I got a Roomba here. I could play with that. Science bone brains, as I call them, have identified the remains of a surprisingly long-legged bird. Although bird, as it turns out, it's kind of hard to define when you're looking at fossils that are around 148 to 150 million years old. But yeah, I didn't realize this, but there's like the history of birds. It's kind of murky. There's like this debate. There's like, there's a whole science mystery going on because here's the deal. Our current understanding is that small feathered 2-legged dinosaurs known as theropods were the precursors to birds that appeared in the Jurassic period. The oldest known bird is yet one of the many things that I will mispronounce, I'm sure, or I've already mispronounced it in this little email. Archaeopteryx, which was a crow-sized bird. You all know this bird. It's a crow-sized bird, but it's got teeth. And a long bony tail and no beak, which of course, frankly, is just sacrilege. You can't have a bird without a beak. It's nuts. It's like a beakless chicken. Isn't that what they were trying to do to make chicken easier to cook and stuff? As a birdless chicken, they just have to go back and hunt a few Archaeopteryx. So the question is, there's a gap of about 20 million years between the next bird fossil. So like what the heck? Obviously birds survived the asteroid. So where are the birds? Where are the bird fossils? It's like it's a dino bird mystery, and that's kind of exciting. So we have to look into that more. I do love me a good mystery. So we've always assumed that early birds were mostly they were tree dwellers. We just assumed they were up in trees. That's where they lived. Well, this Fujian venator, as they're calling it, it's got these really long legs. And so they're thinking it's got to be like a fast runner or some kind of a wading swamp hunter of some sort. But even bird nerds are kind of freaking out about this. They've got their, as I say in the email, they've got their feathers ruffled because they're calling this discovery bizarre. Again, they're trying to figure out this whole bird history. This is just another part of it that they're like, well, I didn't see that coming. But then I got sidetracked. I got sidetracked by this beast. Check this thing out. Okay, this is. So they basically discovered that this is a very misunderstood and long extinct dino nightmare, as they call it. And let's see if I'm going to say this right. Anomalocaris canadensis is which translates to the abnormal shrimp from Canada. How could you resist that in a story? Like, I had to go for that. It was the largest marine animal that lived 508 million years ago. So like an apex predator, apparently. But that sounds impressive. By largest, it was like 2 feet long. But at the time, that was big at the time. So this Canadian critter was thought to be an apex predator, and it was like they thought it was like out there stabbing trilobites and crushing their basically rock-like exteriors and gorging on them. And it turns out, yeah, they did a computer model. They're like, it's too soft. They can't. Actually, they're probably Canadian, right? So they're probably like, I don't think it can get through the trilobite, They've discovered that this thing can't puncture trilobites like they thought it could. It's not this amazing, this amazing apex predator that they thought it was. It just, they just thought it probably just sort of like, swam around face stabbing things, right? Because it's got these amazing sort of face fangs that stick out of its front portion. So it's a bit of a letdown, but come on. I mean, that face is pretty extraordinary. And finally, I will leave you with what I'm hoping will be one of our new adventures. This is another Gimpy G assistive adventure. And so Lance's last mission, Lance Gimpy G, had us eventually teaming up with Google, and then they created this game face using MediaPipe, which is this amazing fancy new self-serve machine learning model system that Google's got. I really want to play with it. I really have to play with it more because there's so much more you can do with it. But they used it to create a face mouse for Lance and people in his position, and there's a great little video in the email that will show you Lance doing his marketing and consulting best for Google there, talking about GameFace. But now he's got another problem. He's got a button pressing problem. And I'm not exactly sure what the details are, but basically, because of limited movement, the buttons he once could press are not as easy to press or not as consistently pressing, or I'm not sure. We'll talk to him about the specifics of that. So I recommended to him that maybe we try some EEGs. And, of course, we've got to try it on me because he can't move to plug these things in. So I'm going to try them on me, and I'm going to see if we can figure out whether it would work on him. I'm also thinking about cracking open my old Open BCI headset, which is my brain-computer interface that I got a while back for the Tech Bandits, and see if maybe their sensors would be sensitive enough to pick up subtle movement or subtle electrical signals in his arm that would allow us to trigger buttons that can't be physically. They don't seem to make one that's physically feather-light enough for him to work with. But who knows? I'm not exactly sure what that is. Once again, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be an ally. So I'd like to be an engineer and an ally, actually. But, obviously got to talk to Lance about what the deal is and see what exactly we can do to help with that. So that's what we'll be doing, I'm hoping, this afternoon. That will be at 2:30 this afternoon, Friday, September the 22nd, 2023. That is 2:30 Eastern time and 2:30-ish. I'm terrible at my times, but I look forward to seeing you all there. So be safe, be kind, be brilliant. Until we geek again, I will say cheerio and huzzah! And I can't wait for next week. I've already got things I found looking for this week's stuff. So join me again for another audio awesome. This is great. So I'll see you all soon. Thanks again. Cheerio.